Okay. It's recording.
It's recording? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem.
So if you could introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name's Aurora, and I'm a Doula International trained and approved birth doula. And yeah, what doulas do is we support birthing people through all different kinds of births. We provide emotional and physical support in addition to their provider, like medical provider, but it's not quite the same because we don't provide any medical assistance or help. We're just there to be like the kind of coach and support person through their labor and birth experience with providing emotional support techniques and physical support techniques.
That's really great. So I have a whole bunch of questions to ask you. I guess the first question is, what inspired you to be a doula? Why did you choose that for your career?
Yeah, so basically what inspired me was my own birth experience. It was really empowering and life-changing, and I don't just mean in like the way that like you give birth and now you have a baby, a kid, and I was now a mother. Like obviously that was life-changing, but the actual experience of like going through the phases of labor and giving birth, like that was actually like a really like empowering and like kind of earth-shattering experience for me. And because I really had never considered before I gave birth any career related to birth work. So it was really that experience of my own birth that changed things for me, and my own birth doula played such an important role in ensuring that I had an amazing birth experience, that I walked away feeling completely empowered and just like having a beautiful birth. She really did play a key fundamental role in that, from everything providing emotional support to me to helping me physically, because I had, quite a long, intense labor, and it really could have been something without support like hers, like professional support like hers, that could have turned into something really scary and almost traumatic, because I did go the unmedicated route. So and instead of it being like something that I was like feeling I couldn't like manage, she just made everything so manageable and still so beautiful. Everything from like massaging my feet and my hair to providing counter pressure on my back as my son tried to like rotate through the process. It really is an experience that having her as my birth doula was an experience that really like it made me almost like bow down to the work of like birth work like that, like doula work. It didn't feel so much as like a logical like, oh, this might be a good career path to go down, and like looking at the pros and cons, it felt more like a calling. Like I would be so honored to be able to support and witness other birthing people in their power. Like what an honor it would be. And so I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, I really think that I want to like almost follow in your footsteps. Like I want to do birth work. And then as I kept like learning about birth and everything like that, I started to like open my eyes to like a kind of more grim reality that 1 in 3 birthing people report traumatic birth experiences. So that really kind of like it really stuck with me. You get into more logistics of, well, what happens when you walk out of your birth experience with birth trauma? And then there's it's like a ripple effect. Well, when you walk out of your birth experience with birth trauma, you are at an increased risk for developing perinatal mood disorders, including postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. And when you've developed those, well, all of a sudden everything postpartum becomes harder. It becomes harder to take proper care of yourself. It can not necessarily always, but it can become harder to take care of your infant and to properly be able to give them everything that infants need. And when there is issues, in the first year of life postpartum, taking care of an infant, like that really affects everyone in society as a whole. Like it is in everyone's best interest to be making sure that mothers or the birthing parent are able to be raising well-adjusted, good kids that eventually turn into well-adjusted, good adults. It's not some like isolated issue that like it's not my issue because I don't have kids or I don't want kids. Like it is a ripple effect. And so now how it relates to birth doulas, there have been lots of studies done on the effects of continuous labor support like doulas provide. And what studies have shown is that doulas reduce the risk of unnecessary medical intervention, which can lead to birth trauma.
Right.
We reduce cesarean rates by almost 40%. And that's a big deal considering we're living in a country where our cesarean rate is roughly 35%.
Oh, wow.
So 1 in 3 births will be surgical births, and for reference, the World Health Organization has stated that a cesarean birth rate of a country should never rise beyond 10 to 15%.
Oh.
And we're having 35%,
35,
which means over half of births of cesarean birth are thought to be unnecessary cesareans.
Right.
And that's a whole other topic for discussion.
Yeah.
But when you have unnecessary medical intervention, like such a big thing like a surgical birth, can be a really hard thing to come out from, and it can be hard to avoid birth trauma with unnecessary medical intervention like that. So we help reduce the cesarean rate by almost 40%, help decrease birth trauma as a whole, and overall people who have had a birth with a birth doula report overall more positive feelings and adjectives to describe their birth afterwards.
Really
so it is really important work, and it's work that humbles me like every single day. Like,
so interesting. I didn't know most of that. That's crazy. So do you follow your clients after they give birth, or once they give birth, do you leave them?
We'll check in with them by text or by phone and see when a good time is to have a postpartum visit. And during the postpartum visits, you kind of help process the birth if there was anything traumatic in it, or just, even if there wasn't, just helping kind of unpacking the details of the birth. And a lot of birthing people have reported like that this really helps for them.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the work is emotional work, which I feel gets so undermined in like medical systems, especially for people with female bodies. Having your emotions invalidated by a doctor is brutal. And I know like every single female presenting person I know has had a terrible experience with that. So it's really great that like you can provide that emotional support. That's such a big part of health. It is
a huge part of health, and that's why like I like the work that holistic care does, because it's about looking at the whole person, in my opinion. So it's a fundamental piece of giving birth, and when there is a lack of emotional and spiritual support, you're really missing out on having a really empowering, amazing birth experience. When you're lacking emotional and or spiritual support, that is when things like, birth trauma can arise, because even if by the book everything went fine with your labor and delivery, if something went on during your labor and delivery, for example, your wishes and your birth preferences and needs were not being respected by your provider, and things were just happening fast around you, and it's your baby, your body, your birth, and you're not even feeling in control, that's a really heavy reality to walk away from birth. And that's when we see things often like birth trauma and like a lot of scarring and a lot of events that can sometimes take years to kind of unpack. And it's a real shame in my opinion, the way that birth is generally seen in our culture, the way it's treated like it's just a physical event that happens, when in reality your whole world changes. Like, it's not just a baby that's being born, like the mother is being born, like it's foolish to ignore the emotional side of birth, the emotional and spiritual components, and it's not just foolish, it ends up being harmful in the long run. So
I mentioned in like a previous video of mine how female bodies are seen as just like laborer producers in capitalist society. So just like decentering the needs of the birth giver, I think that's just something that's been seen throughout history, and it's so just lovely to hear that there are people working to change that.
I do think that historically, women, for example, who are able to give birth are often seen as almost like vessels to just like produce instead of actually being a whole and complete human being by themselves, which I think it's a really important thing for me to state. Like, regardless of whether you have or want children, you are already complete by yourself. Making sure that the birthing person or mother is being treated as a whole human being, just outside of being the vessel that's giving birth to the baby, is so important. is the birthing person being treated like a whole person, a whole human being with feelings aside from being the person that gives birth? Like, how are they being treated in the postpartum period? Who is mothering the mother? You know, if it's a mother, who is mothering the mother? Is someone taking care of them? You know, is everyone focusing their needs on the baby, which are obviously so important, but it's kind of like the saying, you need to put your oxygen mask on first. If the mother or the birthing person is not being taken care of, if it's not being taken care of, then the infant ends up suffering too, because you need to be okay yourself, and you need to be taking care of yourself to be able to take care of the infant. You know, when you're checking in with your friends that have just given birth, like, you know, of course, I think everyone's instinct is to, or most people's instinct is to be like, how's the baby? But make sure you're also asking, like, how are you, you know? Do you need me to drop off a hot meal? Do you need me to, you know, like, you know, quickly do a load of laundry for you? Do you need me to take care of your pet or something like that? Do you need me to hold the baby while you shower? Things like that. It's just, it's so, so important. So our society needs to really start viewing women or birthing people as whole people outside of their role as a parent, a birthing parent or mother. And then once we've really, like, nailed that, that's when, you know, you see better outcomes in terms of, you know, how, you know, well children are raised and stuff like that.
This question's a long one, so I'm going to read it off of my phone. But it is on your Instagram account, which I will link here. You explain how your 3 philosophies in birthing are autonomy, bravery, and confidence. So why are these 3 so important?
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to make a slogan that aligns with how the values that I think are so fundamental and important in birth and all kinds of birth. But I also wanted it to like pair with the initials of my name. Yeah. So my initials are ABC. So I really thought that these 3 adjectives like perfectly fit with my initials, but also really describe my like fundamental beliefs for what birth should be. And the reason I love these so much, like I'll get into obviously the specific ones, but like I love these adjectives because they really fit perfectly with all kinds of birth. Like birth can really look so different. Like birth can look so different for every person, and having an empowering birth doesn't look one way. It can look lots of different ways and, you know, lots of different settings. So I really think these adjectives are just fit so well with every single kind of birth that you can have. Number 1 is autonomy. So I really, this is probably the most important one for me. I really fundamentally believe that you are the ultimate most important authority over your own body, your own birth, your own baby. It's just so important. So what that means like practically is making sure that you are getting informed consent for every single either intervention or decision that is being made about your birth, because it is your birth. Like it really, like I can't drill down that point like hard enough. Like it is your birth. For example, this is an example of a provider like not supporting birth autonomy. So, for example, they walk into a labor and delivery room and they say to the mom, it looks like your labor isn't progressing fast enough, so we're gonna administer some Pitocin to help speed things up. And then they walk out. Where's the choice? Where are the options? Like, you know, the question is being phrased in a way like there are no ands, if, or buts, and if the own birthing person, or in this case mother, has no say over a decision that you know is concerning the health of her and her baby. So full stop there. Fully disagree with that. Often providers that are pro informed consent and pro body and birth autonomy will give out the BRAIN acronym, or oftentimes, like for example with my clients, I teach the acronym BRAIN. All the purpose of this acronym is like if a provider is suggesting an intervention to you, you can kind of use this acronym to help sort through everything and, you know, if it's a good decision for you or not. So the B stands for benefits. So the benefits of this birth intervention, what are they? And then R for the risks. What are the risks of this birth intervention? What are they? And then A for alternatives. So are the alternatives to this birth intervention? I, which is a really important one, intuition. So what is your intuition saying about this birth intervention that's being proposed to me? And then N, what if we do nothing? So what if we just don't do this birth intervention? What happens? What could happen? We're living in a time where we're seeing a lot of what's called the Cascade of Interventions. So when low risk pregnancy and birth is given, a first intervention, it's more likely to cause other interventions. It goes from one intervention to like more extreme interventions. So it is something that can happen. And so it's important to like go through, again, like the benefits and risks of intervention. Making sure you're being respected by your provider is the ultimate authority over your own birth, meaning that you get the first and final say, but everything that happens during your birth process, you make the final shots and calls. And part of that means giving your patient or client like informed consent over decisions, like making sure they're understanding the full picture here. And then the second adjective of my little slogan / adjective list is brave, or bravery. And I think this is an important one because birth is like no joke. It's super intense. And often, especially if you're going the unmedicated route, you will have moments where you feel like you can't do this anymore. Like it gets really intense. It'll test you in many ways you never even thought possible. Really makes you a stronger person, like when you walk out of it. But in the moment, like birth will definitely test you mentally, test you physically. And that's when, your role as a doula can kind of like creep in there, like being that little voice in like the birthing person's head saying like, they say like, I can't do this. And then, you just like quiet voice saying like, yes, you can, because you're already doing it. Of course you can do it. This is exactly what you're doing right now. You are doing it. And that just helps manifest bravery, that bravery that's already inside every birthing person, just a little bit more, and just helping that manifest and come out a little bit more when they need it. Like bravery is a really big part of it. I think, all birthing people have bravery inside of them, just sometimes in certain moments of birth when it's really testing you. As a doula, you need to kind of help guide that bravery out a little bit more, help it manifest a little bit more. That's a big part of it because, birth will require you to be brave for sure. So helping manifest that is why I put bravery in my acronym. And then confidence is the last adjective. And I included that one because I think, like all of them, I think it's really important. It's a really important one. Confidence really in your body, confidence in your body's ability to give birth to your baby. Confidence in your body, knowing that your body was preparing to give birth since you were in utero, and you were creating your, 1 million eggs, one of them which was destined to become the baby you are about to birth. Like, that's quite a powerful thing to think about. Like, your body's been preparing for birth their whole life, confidence that your body and your baby know exactly when to part from each other, confidence that your body and baby were built and made for each other, all powerful things to kind of help, remember and realize and help, manifest. It really comes down to confidence and trust, and being confident that your body knows what to do, and trusting that, your body knows what to do. Because, when you don't have confidence and trust in your body, it's you're lacking a key piece of the puzzle to having an amazing birth experience. You really need to have confidence in your body, and you really need to trust your body.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
this was
problem.
So fascinating. I know that I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I really liked how you showed us all the different facets of health. Yeah, so you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much. Like, I love talking all things birth. I love writing about birth. So any opportunity I can get to kind of help someone understand birth a little bit more, or get a chance to ramble on about it, like, I really just love talking about it. So it's my pleasure and honor. And I'm so glad that you have chosen to include such an important topic like birth culture on your channel. Like, it's really so important. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I'll link a whole bunch of resources like the Toronto Birthing Center as well as Aurora's socials if you're interested in learning more. So yeah. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cute. Okay. This is so funny.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay.
Yeah.